Grace and peace, everybody. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, so you know what we are about to do. Or do you? This is Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by on this evening. We got a lot to do tonight. We got a lot to talk about. Hopefully, you all are tapped in. Hopefully, you had a great Lord's Day, worshiping the Lord with your church family, or just enjoying a day of rest. And I hope that nonetheless, I'm glad that you stopped through on this evening. Shout out to everybody that's already filled the chat up with all these great faces, all these beautiful people in the building. Shout out to brand new member, Kristen Vasquez. Thank you so much for becoming a member of the DWC family. Thank you so much. All these green names in here. This is amazing. So glad to see y'all. Every last one of you. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you so much. So, as you heard me talk about today, we're going to be talking about the movie Am I a Racist by Matt Walsh. And it's caused a lot of good conversation. I feel like conversation on both sides of the discussion, whether you believe in racism, whether you don't believe in racism, whether you're hypersensitive to it, or whether you're completely ignorant to it, it doesn't matter. I think there's been a lot of good conversation. So I have a guest tonight who's seen the movie as well, has written a lot about it, spilt a lot of ink about it, if you will, and we are going to be talking about it. So I do want to bring in wombtum apologetics real quick. Grace and peace, friend. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on, Jason.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. Now, real quick, let me give you an opportunity to tell us who you are, what your channel's about, and then we're going to jump into this movie review, because we said it's not super long, so we don't have a lot that we have to talk about, but there's a lot of good meat that we can discuss. So I'm going to give you an opportunity real quick. Tell us who you are.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm Womb to Tomb Apologetics, and the basic description of my channel is I just help people share, explain, and understand the Christian, conservative, and pro-life worldview with some memes along the way. Most of my content generally, I would say, appeals more to a Gen Z audience, but I have people from all walks of life watching my videos, and basically I just like to have a lot of fun and hang out, and yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for stopping through. All right, let's jump into it. Am I racist? Now, if you've not been following, real quick, what inspired you to go see it? Matter of fact, let me ask you that question. What inspired you to go see it?
Well, I am a fan of Matt Walsh, and I love his commentary. I think his humor is maybe a bit dry at times, but
Most
he
certainly.
uh, he certainly knows how to explain things in a way that is digestible and usually pretty witty, I would say, when it comes to pretty much all topics on conservatism, but especially when it comes to this sort of racial politics stuff. And I've seen pretty much, I think, every Daily Wire movie that's been out. And, I know that What is a Woman was excellent. So I thought, hey, let's go see this one.
I like it. All right. So if you're not familiar, Matt Walsh is a contributor and definitely highly supported by the Daily Wire. He's done several documentaries. I think you just mentioned, of course, Am I a Woman? And of course, I'm sorry, What is a Woman? Then Am I Racist? Oh, I don't remember any of the other ones, but he's done several of those. And in this movie, he kind of explores the idea of what we all talked about, DIE, which is that diversity, inclusion, and equity. And he's basically coming from a position of being a white man and how does he decenter his whiteness. I do think that this is probably one of the first. Yeah, it is. It is the first that wasn't a streaming movie or documentary. This one is, available in theaters, which I think is super huge, considering that you went from something that's on YouTube, something that's just being streamed, to now something that has a theatrical release. And I thought that was pretty dope. All right. So what do you think about the overall tenor of the documentary? What was your overall opinion of it without getting into the deep weeds of the meat of the substance?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit of a contrarian on this. I think
Okay.
most reviews have said this was, wow, this is really good, or at least it was, good for conservative audiences, but maybe other people would get a laugh. That's about it. I would say I was a little bit unenthused with it by the end of it.
Okay.
Now, part of that had to do with the fact that I had seen so many clips beforehand, so a lot of the jokes were already a little bit
Already
They were a
played
little
out,
bit.
right.
You're right. But I mean, it was funny. I would still recommend people go and watch it for sure. Um, but I think compared to What is a Woman, which kind of set the bar very high, I
Mhm.
think this one didn't quite reach that. I think What is a Woman was excellent. I think it had something to say. And I thought this film didn't say as much. I would describe
Daughter's
this
4
movie
years
as
old.
more like
I
a
am
lot of trolling.
Yeah.
Basically is what he was doing the whole movie, which is fine. It's very funny. I mean, if you want to see some good trolling,
Oh, some
definitely
high
go see
level
the movie
trolling.
for sure. But I felt like for a documentary, he didn't say as much and he didn't kind of start a conversation like he did with What is a Woman? Because after that, everybody's going around asking that question, right?
What
Everybody's
is a
going to their
woman?
liberal friend, oh, what's a woman? Oh, what's a woman? Right. And then,
Right.
it starts a movement. This one, not very much commentary, more just laughs, which is fine if that's what you're going for. But yeah, that was my impression.
Oh, no, no, I think that's great. I think for me, and I'm gonna pull up, I have 2 clips I thought were really good. I don't know how Daily Wire is with showing their clips, so prayerfully, we're not gonna get dinged for this, but I had 2 clips that I really think kinda get in my opinion, gave the overall tenor of the movie and gave you a good basis for some of the things that you're talking about right here. So, here he's gonna, because as you mentioned, womb to tomb, he doesn't really challenge or push back, he just allows them to kinda people to just talk.
Mhm.
And I think allowing somebody to talk has its good place, but you do need a challenge where they're off in their thinking. And I think this one right here, I think really kind of adds to it, if you will, kind of exacerbates what you're saying. So let's give her a chance to speak. Let's go.
My daughter's 4 years old. I am an anti-racist educator, quote unquote. She's still watching Disney movies and she is choosing a white princess over princesses of color
Have you talked to her about that?
all the time.
My 3-year-old daughter is her favorite princess is Moana.
Love it.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
But then I also thought, there's a little bit of cultural appropriation here. She wants to be Moana for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we navigate that? Do I go and buy the Pacific Islander native attire for my white 3-year-old?
I wouldn't.
And I'm going to just stop real quick because I want to point out that the knots that this woman is twisting herself up into, because she identified herself as a white racial educator. And so she has to speak on this topic. She has to speak on this topic walking on a razor's edge, because either way, being that she's a woman of less melanin, talking about a person of high melanin, it's already going to be problematic. Do you agree?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that's kind of explored in the documentary. I don't know if you're going to talk about the race to dinner scene.
Yeah. Race to dinner's coming next. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Well, just as a preview, just the idea that like if you're a white person, or I guess as we say, less melanated person,
I was
right,
like,
walking into the room on this ideology, what you're ending up with is you are basically like, how would you say? I mean, it's a very like subservient
mhm.
making ideology. It's hard to kind of put it into words, but you are coming in a way that um, is sort of what they call white guilt.
Yep.
And it's an interesting thing that, again, I wish you would have talked more about in the documentary. But when we talk about Christianity and how does Christianity intertwine with this,
Mhm.
it's sort of a way of dealing with the sin problem, right? So on CRT, the idea is white people are inherently racist, and that is kind of that's a sin, obviously, to be racist, right?
Right,
And
right.
so by becoming a purveyor of this ideology and by becoming an educator and becoming educated, as Matt Walsh does throughout the documentary, you are
Program.
sort of dealing, right? You're dealing with your sin problem. You're sort of atoning for it, which of course is not how we
Atoning
would.
for anything. Right. It's
Right,
false atonement.
exactly.
It's a
And
false
the
atonement.
worst part about it, as we're just about to see in just a few seconds here, I'll let you play the clip. It is designed so that you do not actually get out of your sin. You do not
That
get
is
out
true.
of your racism. There is no, it's designed to be a no-win scenario
Mhm.
precisely because this therapy, this drug, this cure doesn't actually cure anything. And so
Facts.
they've got to keep you coming back for more, right? By getting you hooked on it, essentially, because it's not actually going to cure anything. So
Let's go. Let's go.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
But I guess what we might call the Moana problem here is what, on one hand, there's cultural appropriation. On the other hand, there's gravitating towards white characters.
Right.
So it's almost like no matter which way you go, you
Right.
end up back in racism.
We think every space belongs to us because we live in a white supremacist society.
Is America an inherently racist country?
I think the word inherent is challenging there. If we say
Fundamentally.
fundamentally, yes, America is racist to its bones.
Wow.
All of the
So inherently.
yeah.
They gonna say you racist.
All right. So I think you see it. You and I both see the problem with that argument is that you are saying that America, the system, America, the land, and all that stuff is inherently sinful, not the people who are doing said sins.
yeah.
And I think that's problematic. Go ahead. What are you gonna say, woman?
Well, that brings up an interesting point about the Marxist roots of this ideology, CRT, right? Critical race theory. That critical, when you hear about critical theory, that's a Marxist theory applied in this case to race, but they use it for other things, feminism, critical feminist theory, etc. Right? But the idea is meant to be very left wing because it is, we would say, revolutionary
Woman, an
in
unsuccessful
its tone. So left wingers tend to be the more revolutionary people. So they want to change the system. They want to, and you hear these words, tear down, deconstruct, dismantle. You don't hear those words on the right. You hear those on the left. Why? Because they're revolutionary. And so this is sort of a way that Marxists use racial politics and racial tension that has grown in America to divide so that they can conquer, essentially, right? So they can get at their real enemy. It's not really white people that they have so much of a problem with. It's America, right? We want to fundamentally change America to make it look the way we want it to. And so this is sort of the way they kind of create pawns to disseminate their ideas, essentially.
I love it. Thank you so much. All right, let's bring in the race to dinner. Now, there is also a segment where he talks to Robin DiAngelo, and y'all know how much I love Robin DiAngelo. Good gracious, that woman is amazing. And she's just amazing at foolishness. However, I could not find a good clip to play. However, I do want to talk about something after we watch this. And I want to ask you all, did you notice this about everybody that we've seen so far in this episode? So real quick, let's bring it in and let's go race to dinner.
I used to be a white woman, an unsuccessful one, for many decades, and it was a miserable experience. And really, the hatred of yourselves and each other is like the not seeing your power, the being afraid. Like, all you do is talk shit about each other, talk shit about yourself. Oh my God, I'm so fat.
That's all they do. I'm telling you, these white women.
But that's it. It's I'm so fat, I'm so stupid, I'm blah blah blah.
Sorry.
Your kids are watching you, and they're watching you talking shit about each other, raging against the machine or being silent or whatever the hell it is that you're doing or not doing, and they know that you're not doing shit for them.
That's so important. That is so important what you just said. It's really important. That's all.
We may have to add you to our team.
Oh, I would love to take a seat and join you.
No, you're not allowed to.
Okay.
Definitely not allowed.
Okay. I do have.
You know what, real quick, a woman to him, I forgot to ask, does everybody know what race to dinner is?
Yeah, so race to dinner is...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the reason why they say he can't sit down is it's only for white women. Okay,
Right.
only white women can
You
attend.
got to build it up. This is a dinner where these women are sitting there, not the two women that are hosting, the Indian woman and the black woman are hosting this dinner. And these women have paid multi-$1,000s to sit at this table. So let's just say for laughs and giggles, they paid $3,000.
It was
go to
actually
dinner.
5,000. I
Five,
wrote it
okay.
down when I watched 5,000.
Okay. I wasn't certain if that was true, so I've heard other numbers as well, but 5, that's even better. So around that table, there was at least 10 women. So that's $50,000. Talk about a grift. But they're paying $5,000 to have this woman berate them, have that black woman berate them about nothing more than their ethnicity. Nothing more. She knows nothing more about it. She didn't do a criminal background check. She didn't do a credit check. She didn't check to see if they turned in their 3rd grade library books, anything. It's just because of their ethnicity. And that's how she's berating them. So the way she's speaking to them is only because of the fact that they're white women. Did you want to add anything?
No, we can save it for later.
Okay, let's go.
I have my DEI certification that I got.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
not saying I'm an expert, but I'm also not a novice. So, okay.
White people are starved for these conversations.
We are. We're so starving.
Yeah.
We are so starving for this.
Anyone else want to say anything?
I'll just say one thing. I'm so glad we can have these conversations, and I'll be done. But I'm just so glad that we could all get together to have these conversations. That's all I wanted to say.
Is he an actor? Are you an actor?
Oh, no.
Can you let us, we're trying to listen and trying to have this conversation.
Okay. You know, we're all acting all the time in our lives. And I think that that's part of the problem, you know? That it's like we're all trying to play a part rather than just being real and having these uncomfortable conversations. And that's what I'm always trying to tell people, especially, you know, white women. No offense, but
No, but see, like, you're a white dude. There's power positions, and you know, it's pointing white people pointing fingers at each other is not helpful.
you know, I've been on this journey for so long, and just to see you guys at the table having this conversation has been really enlightening for me. Anyway, I got the DEI certification, and I'm just on the journey. All right, you ladies have a great night.
Okay. Decolonize yourself. Do your own white supremacy dismantling. And then you can start to bring in other people.
Can I just say one last thing? Can I just propose a toast? I mean, just raise a glass if you're racist. And that's the thing.
Cheers. Oh, I'm not racist. Let me
To
go my
racist, well,
glass.
all the rest of it. To racist.
Am I Racist? Rated PG-13. Buy tickets now.
All right, where do you want to go with that? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot more on that clip that I would say, but let me just go back to the first one even for a moment. He was talking about the Moana problem.
Yeah,
That's what he
absolutely.
called it. And I
Yeah.
think that shows us this idea in CRT that shows the ideology is unfalsifiable, right?
Correct.
No matter what you do, you are racist. At the end of the documentary, he's talking to Robin DiAngelo, who wrote, what was it, White Fragility.
White Fragility and,
best-selling book.
Yep.
Yeah. And in that book, I think it's in that one, she talks about kind of this concept. She doesn't outright say, like, yeah, there's no way you can get around racism. But she does say, she gives this example where, you know, if let's say you are she says, the question isn't whether there's racism. The question is, where is the racism?
Where's the racism?
So you are to presume that racism is basically in every single interaction you have as if you're a white person or whatever,
Mhm.
right? So she talks about like going into a store, a grocery store, and there's a store manager there, and let's say the person who walks into the store is, you know, there's one person who walks in there black and one person that walks in there white. If the store manager goes over to the black person to say, "Oh, sir, how can I help you?" That is racist because you are presuming that a black person cannot be left alone in your store.
That's her.
Right. Now, is that actually true? You know, is Robin DiAngelo a mind reader? No, but this is what the ideology says must be the case. Now, if they go over and help the white person, that's also racist, right? Why? Well, because, oh, you know, you're helping the white person over the black person. You didn't go over and ask him for help. And at the end of the documentary, he goes over another example she goes through where she says smiling at black people is racist, but also not smiling at them is also racist. And he goes through and he kind of trolls her the whole time, but he goes through the example with her and says, let me pretend to be a black person, you be the white person, and we'll go through that scenario together. And it's certainly an awkward exchange, and it's certainly worth a lot of laughs, but I think it reveals that it's meant to be unfalsifiable. There's no way to get past your sin, right? You're never fully paid up.
That is correct. I just wanted a couple things. I always tell people you can't prove a negative. So you can't prove that I'm not something. How do you do that? So when you in this argumentation here, because Robin also says in the book, good races, there's just levels of racism. So she's, of course, a good racist, whereas somebody else, she'll probably throw somebody's name up there. They're far worse racist than she is. And I argue that there's no such thing as racism. There's only partiality. And you're showing some form of partiality or some form of preference to somebody based upon an external. But even more than that, Scripture doesn't give us any ability or power to understand what somebody's their mindset on a topic. We can only tell by their actions. Now, of course, somebody's actions can definitely give us a open window to their mindset. But at the end of the day, I don't know, just like you're giving an example of the store owner, you don't know that person has any animus toward the black person or any favoritism toward the white person. They might have just spoke to the person that made eye contact with them first. You don't know that. So going back to the point that Robin was making, when you put in place these are new hurdles that the Bible doesn't teach. And I tell people all the time, I don't want to be in bondage anymore. My sin had such a hold on me before. I'm good with Christ removing that burden. So I'm not going to put on new burdens. Because notice, this is a burden that she has put on people that there is no way to take it off. There is no way. If she's saying that literally everybody with less melanin is racist by default, what can they do? There's nothing they can do. Not a thing. And if they could strip their skin off, it wouldn't matter. She would say that it's still ingrained in your she's the one that said that she was a racist in utero, that she was literally racist in the womb.
Wow.
So going back to her argumentation here, so this is a new burden and please understand, the only people that can be racist are people that are less melanated. So now we actually have categories of sin that nobody else can perform. You saw the black woman at the table said, I can't be a racist. So let's just pretend that racism is real. The black woman isn't a sinner. The only people that are sinners were those white women that paid $5,000 a plate to come to dinner. And Matt Walsh pretending to be a waiter. Those are the only people that can be sinners. So now we have sins that are landlocked to certain people groups. Make that make sense. There's nothing biblical that supports that. Not a thing. So that's why I find Robin DiAngelo so adorable, because I think she's and let's also address the elephant in the room. Did you notice that you saw the faces of everybody in all those clips? Did you notice that, wombtum?
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that, right? There's nobody's face blurred out. Did you notice that?
Right.
You know what that means? That means that those people actually signed an agreement to be on the movie.
Yes.
So that means that Sarah, I forgot the black woman's name, both of them, they are aware that they are in a movie.
Yeah.
And so same thing with Robin DiAngelo. Robin DiAngelo she signed the NDA or whatever it was called to be in the movie. Because I'm going to read for you a little article where she pitched a fit about the fact that she says that Matt Walsh tricked her. You know what? I'll just drop it in the chat. We're not going to read it tonight. But it's very interesting. I'm dropping it in chat right now. But my point in bringing that up is they're aware. They're aware that they are charging $5,000 a plate. Robin DiAngelo got paid $15,000 to be in this movie.
Yes.
That's a pretty mean grift. She talked for 2 hours with Matt Walsh. So doing the math real quick, that's $7,500 an hour. I don't know anybody in this chat that makes $7,500 an hour. But Robin can. Why? Because Robin has built up a cottage industry of berating the less melanated at the behest of the highly melanated and making a bag in the process. That's craziness.
Yeah. And it's an example of, again, how the idea of like the demand for racism exceeds the supply, right? They have to keep supplying it, otherwise they don't make their money. At least the people in charge don't. right?
Yeah.
And he goes over that with the Jussie Smollett case
Yeah.
during the movie, right? It's a made up thing that didn't actually happen. What
It
he
didn't
said.
happen. Right.
So they have to create racism. They have to create problems. They have to stir the pot. They got to be divisive while pointing the finger at everybody else and saying, "Oh, you're the ones who are being divisive." It's like, wait a minute, hold on.
But
You're the
you're the
one
one
going
that's
around pointing your finger, calling
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
racist and all this stuff. Like what? So,
And keep in mind also, and like I said, there's a much longer clip of him reading Robin DiAngelo's letter, which I thought was pretty wild. I'm not gonna. It's long. And I told you we weren't gonna be super long tonight, but I did drop Robin DiAngelo's letter in the chat, so you can check it out. Feel free to grab it and check it out, read it yourselves. It's there for you. But I'm gonna come back around. I think the thing that people are not realizing is that you and I both share the same faith. So in Christ, we don't have to do this. We don't have to behave like this. If you've sinned against me, then you've sinned against me. I cannot impose or assume sin that hasn't happened. That doesn't even make sense. It's like some Minority Report stuff, some thought crime situation. We've never been told to do that. Now, why is that important? Because I have been forgiven. And because I've been forgiven, I can extend forgiveness to somebody else just the same. And this religion, it's false religion of CRT, DEI, and the such of that nature, doesn't make room for the fact that Robin DiAngelo is a sinner, just like just like I am. I'm no better of a sinner than her. I'm just forgiven. That's it. But it doesn't deal with the fact that we are all sinners. And therefore it adds levels to it, which makes no sense at all. If you ever think about it, just process that for a second. That doesn't even make sense. But we've allowed it because, as you said, the demand for racism has outstripped and outpaced the actual supply. So now we've had to create new levels of sin, new levels of racism. Or I don't even like using the word racism, but I'm using it only because of this discussion. But we have to create new scenarios in order to fulfill people's insatiable desire for there to be a victim when they themselves are the perpetrator of sin against God. But what else? You got anything else you want to add to that, my good friend?
yeah, no, that's it's an important point you make, and I think it shows in a weird way. CRT actually reveals the truth of Christianity in the sense that we all have an underlying understanding that there is brokenness in the world, that there is sin, and that we need something or someone, some sort of process, whatever it is, we need something to solve that problem. Now, at the same time, it also needs to provide a mechanism for avoiding guilt, at least for certain protected classes, in this case, racial minorities, right? They can't be racist by definition. They can't be racist. So you don't have to abide by any sort of these like fruit of the spirit, right? You don't have to be patient. In fact, at one point in the documentary, one of the ladies says, "You don't even have to be kind, right? About any of this stuff. You don't have to be long suffering or any of these things. You should basically indulge in vices, right? So you don't have to pay anything. You just get the benefit of recognizing the sin. So it's twisting the truth. There is truth that's being recognized, a broad underlying truth, but it's being twisted into something really just evil. I mean, just think about some of these things that they do to treat other people and even how they treat themselves. Again, I don't want to give away too much, but there is a point in the documentary where Matt Walsh actually brings out whips for people to self-flagellate themselves, right? If they're white. And I won't tell you what happens with it, but just the fact that like people didn't like raise an eyebrow at that,
Bristle back, right?
and how they treated these other people. There's another point where he brings his fake racist uncle. It's not actually his uncle, right? But people think it is, right? He brings out his uncle who he tells his class, he makes his own DEI class. He tells them 20 years ago at the Thanksgiving dinner table, this man made a racist joke, and he tells what the joke is. It's like, okay, whatever, maybe a little bit, whatever, edgy, but nothing, no profanity or anything like that or whatever. But he makes this joke, and he basically berates the guy for like a whole minute, yelling at him, and he tells the whole class to join in. And these people who are sitting there, who think this is a real DEI class, are shouting profanity at him. They are demeaning him. He's like this old man in a wheelchair who can't even like talk, who made a racist joke at a Thanksgiving dinner 20 years ago.
Right.
And they're yelling at him, demeaning him, putting him down. So sad, right? That this is where people dwell at. And one of the ladies even says, yeah, I abandoned my whole family because they voted a way I didn't like.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's not the way Jesus tells us to interact with anybody, no matter which political side, right?
Right.
You don't abandon your family. Don't shout those awful things at someone for something they
That you don't even
did.
know.
Right. But again, it shows you how irredeemable the sin problem is on the lens of CRT. You made a joke 20 years ago, you still have to pay for that.
Right.
Right. So it's no grace, no peace, no forgiveness, which is really sad.
No, I like that. Great point. Now, down in the chat, I did drop your most recent your review of the movie as well, and I'll drop it one more time. So please check out my guest, Womb to Tomb Apologetics, not only his own channel, but he did a review of the Matt Walsh video, Am I Racist? And I thought it was good. Definitely want you to check it out and give him. I think he's going to earn it. I believe you'll thank me for encouraging you to go check it out. Like, share, subscribe, all that kind of good jazz like that. You got any new projects coming up besides this, my friend?
We do have a few videos coming out. I won't spoil much, but I got one on Christy Burke, who is an internet atheist, very popular. She seems like a very sweet gal, but I think she's very she misunderstands a lot of things. She has a video out on how the Bible apparently promotes abortion. It's in support of abortion. Obviously, I'm the big pro-life guy.
Yep.
So for me, I'm like, I got to get on this. It's on, right? So that'll come out in a few weeks probably. I got to finish that up, but I go through and respond to her verses that she pulls out of context, and she says, "Oh, all the commentators agree on this." I looked up all the commentators. I'm like, none of them say what she's saying, right?
Nobody,
So very
nobody's agreeing with
sweet,
Christy.
I hope she turns from her ways, but yeah, she's gets a lot of stuff wrong, so I'm going to be correcting that. And various projects coming up, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Real quick, thank you so much, Womb to Tomb, for not only for agreeing to come on, watching the movie, and giving us your commentary, all that kind of good jazz like that. I appreciate you. Do you want to hang out in the chat? Are you going to be hanging out, or where are you going to be tonight?